Welcome to the Archivist Files, where shadows hold secrets too dark to fade. Here, ordinary moments turn into chilling puzzles as people vanish without a trace. Every missing piece only deepens the mystery, and the truth hides where no light can reach. On February 9th, 2004, the 21-year-old nursing student from Massachusetts quietly left her campus. Without telling anyone where she was heading, she packed up a few essentials, withdrew some cash, and hit the road. No one could have imagined that those would be the last confirmed moments of her life ever seen by the outside world. Hours later, her black Saturn was found, crashed along Route 112 in rural New Hampshire. It was a bitterly cold night, and the area was surrounded by thick forest. A local resident spotted the accident and called authorities. By the time officers reached the scene, the driver's seat was empty. The airbags were deployed. Inside the car were her belongings, including alcohol she had purchased earlier and packed clothes. What was missing was Maura herself. Search teams moved fast. Dogs traced her scent, but lost it not far from the car. No footprints in the snow gave any hint of a direction, no sign of a struggle. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Her disappearance triggered a storm of theories. Some believed she ran away to start a secret life, escaping pressures no one fully understood. Others suspected an abduction by someone who might have been passing through that isolated stretch. A few even suggested she met with someone she trusted, only for the night to take a dark turn. What made the case even stranger was what happened before she left. Days earlier, she had faced personal stress, a family incident, academic problems, and emotional turmoil. Yet, there was nothing that clearly explained why she would head north alone, with no clear destination. For years, investigators followed countless tips. Search parties combed through frozen rivers, abandoned cabins, and dense woods. A basement near the area was dug up in 2019 after rumors of human remains spread, but nothing surfaced. Each lead eventually led to another dead end. The case became one of the most discussed mysteries on the internet. Amateur detectives dissected every detail: the timing, the crash, the missing footprints, the strange silence. Everyone had a theory, but no one had proof. Her family has never stopped looking. They've walked those same roads, organized vigils, and pushed for new investigations. Time has moved on, but the night of February 9th remains frozen in uncertainty. 2 decades later, there are still no answers, no arrests, no confirmed sightings, just a stretch of icy road, a missing young woman, and a mystery that refuses to fade. This isn't just a disappearance, it's a riddle buried in snow, one that has haunted both investigators and the public for years. Whoever holds the truth has remained silent, and the shadows of that night still linger on Route 112. But Maura's case is just one of many disappearances that seem to defy logic. If you think vanishing without a trace on a snowy road is chilling, wait until you hear about a man who ran through an airport, terrified, and was never seen again. This next story is just as disturbing, and even more puzzling. If you're following these unbelievable disappearances closely, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another story this chilling. In July 2014, 28-year-old German tourist Lars Mittank was vacationing in Bulgaria with friends. The trip was going well until an altercation near a bar left him with a minor ear injury. Doctors advised him not to fly immediately due to the risk of complications. While his friends returned home, Lars stayed behind alone, a decision that would mark the beginning of a chilling mystery. He checked into a cheap hotel near Varna Airport to wait for medical clearance. Over the next few days, his behavior changed drastically. Friends received frantic messages from him claiming that people were following him. Hotel staff later said he seemed terrified, pacing around and whispering to himself. In the middle of the night, he even called his mother, sounding panicked and confused, insisting something wasn't right. The following morning, Lars visited a doctor to get cleared for travel. At the clinic, he suddenly bolted from the examination room without explanation. Minutes later, surveillance cameras at Varna Airport captured a scene that would burn itself into true crime history. Lars can be seen walking nervously through the terminal. Then, out of nowhere, he drops his bag, sprints out of the building, and runs through the parking lot, past security fences, over a hill, and into a nearby field. He was barefoot and carried no phone, no wallet, and no identification. That was the last confirmed sighting of him. Authorities launched an extensive search. Police combed through nearby forests, fields, and abandoned buildings. Helicopters scanned the area, and posters were spread across Europe. Yet no trace was found, not a single confirmed clue. Speculation around his disappearance exploded. Some believed he suffered a sudden psychological break, possibly triggered by the head injury or medication. Others suggested foul play, believing his fears of being followed weren't just paranoia. There were even theories involving organized crime and human trafficking, though nothing has ever been proven. His family has never stopped searching. Year after year, they've released appeals, followed reported sightings, and worked with investigators in multiple countries. But the mystery has remained frozen in that moment at the airport, the sight of a young man running for his life, never to be seen again. More than a decade later, the unanswered questions still linger. What made him so terrified? Did someone harm him, or did his mind betray him in a foreign land? To this day, no one knows what happened after Lars disappeared into those Bulgarian fields. A suitcase left behind, a camera recording his final moments, and a mystery that refuses to be solved. On March 7th, 2021, the sun was setting gently over the turquoise waters of the U.S. Virgin Islands, painting the horizon in gold and rose. On the deck of a white 47-foot catamaran named Siren Song, everything appeared calm. The evening air carried laughter, music from nearby Cruz Bay, and the soft rhythm of the sea. A British woman named SARM HESLOP, 41 years old, was living her dream, sailing across the Caribbean, working on yachts, and embracing a life of freedom and adventure. That night, she and her American boyfriend, Ryan Bain, took their small dinghy to shore for dinner. Locals remember seeing them at a cozy restaurant, talking and smiling beneath strings of lights. Nothing about the evening seemed unusual. Around 10 p.m., they left for the yacht, anchored just off the western coast of St. John. The weather was calm, the sea quiet. It was supposed to be another peaceful night. But by morning, paradise had turned into mystery. Around 2:30 a.m., Ryan phoned the island police. He said SARM was gone. He'd woken up and found her missing from the boat. Her phone, wallet, and passport were still inside the cabin, untouched. The dinghy was tied, the cabin door open, and the water outside silent. At first, it sounded like a tragic accident. Maybe she'd fallen into the sea during the night. Yet the more investigators searched, the stranger it became. The Coast Guard launched boats and helicopters. Divers explored the reefs and coves nearby. Nothing. No clothing, no body, no sign she'd ever entered the water. The Caribbean, beautiful but vast, offered no answers. Hours turned into days, and questions began to grow. Why did Ryan call the Coast Guard almost 9 hours after he had contacted the local police? Why wasn't the yacht searched immediately and thoroughly? Investigators requested full access to the vessel, but according to reports, Ryan's cooperation was limited. He spoke through a lawyer and refused to allow a detailed forensic examination of Siren Song. Back in England, SARM's parents were heartbroken. They described their daughter as adventurous but cautious, someone who loved life and never took careless risks. To them, the theory that she simply fell overboard didn't make sense. They begged authorities for transparency, for another chance to search the boat, a search they believed could hold the truth. Weeks passed, then months. The bar where she and Ryan had eaten that night had security cameras, but, as fate would have it, they weren't working. No footage, no timeline, no closure. Today, years later, the mystery remains. SARM HESLOP's disappearance is one of the most haunting, unsolved cases of recent years. A woman who vanished without a trace from a yacht anchored just a few hundred meters from shore. What truly happened on that warm Caribbean night? No one knows. The sea, calm and endless, has kept her secret ever since. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. You won't want to miss the shocking stories we have coming next. In the small city of Valdosta, Georgia, a regular school day in January 2013 would soon turn into something no one could ever forget. 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson was just another high school student, quiet, athletic, and well-liked by many of his classmates. He walked into Lowndes High School that morning like he always did. Nothing seemed out of place. But before the sun would set, an ordinary gymnasium would become the center of one of the most disturbing mysteries in recent American history. The following day, classmates entered the gym for practice. That's when someone noticed something strange, a pair of feet sticking out of an upright wrestling mat. It was rolled up and leaning against the wall. When students and teachers rushed closer, what they found was horrifying. Inside, upside down, was Kendrick's body. Authorities were quick to respond. The scene was chaotic, students crying, teachers in shock. Within hours, the entire gym was taped off. The first explanation offered was shocking in its simplicity. Investigators suggested that Kendrick may have dropped a shoe inside the mat, tried to reach down for it, and got trapped, unable to breathe. It sounded like a tragic accident. But soon, that version began to crack. Friends and family were not convinced. Kendrick was an athlete, tall and strong. How could someone like him have gotten stuck in such a way? And even if he had, why hadn't anyone heard him call for help in a busy school gym? The questions multiplied, and the answers felt thinner by the day. Months later, a private autopsy ordered by his parents revealed something even darker. A medical examiner found signs of blunt force trauma to Kendrick's head, something that didn't match the accidental fall theory. As if that wasn't enough, when the body was examined again, the family discovered that his internal organs were missing and had been replaced with newspaper. This discovery sent shockwaves through the entire country. The school's surveillance footage also added fuel to the fire. There were hours of gaps in the recordings. Certain angles that might have shown Kendrick entering or moving through the gym were incomplete or unavailable. How could critical moments of that day just disappear? Rumors spread fast, theories exploded online, and the case gained national attention. Some believed it was a tragic accident mishandled by authorities. Others were convinced it was something far more sinister, an act covered up to protect someone. Years passed. Investigations reopened, then stalled. Protests echoed through Valdosta, demanding the truth. Yet, no one was ever held responsible, and the real events of that day remain clouded in silence. What began as a normal school day ended with a family's unimaginable loss and a town buried in questions that refused to fade. Kendrick's story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most unsettling mysteries don't happen in the dark. They unfold in plain sight, where everyone thought they were safe. But this isn't the only case where the truth slipped through cracks and shadows. Years before Kendrick's tragedy, another young man's ordinary evening turned into something far stranger, a fall that defied logic, and a mystery that still haunts a city. This is the story of Ray Rivera. If you're following these unbelievable cases closely, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another story this chilling. In May 2006, Baltimore's spring air carried its usual city rhythm, cars rushing past, the hum of distant traffic, people going about their everyday lives. Among them was 32-year-old Ray Rivera, a writer and videographer with big dreams and a warm smile that people never forgot. He had moved from California to Baltimore to work with a close friend at an investment publishing company. Life seemed steady, plans, love, and a future that felt secure. But one evening, everything changed without warning. On May 16th, Ray received a mysterious phone call at home. His wife, Allison, recalled that the tone of the call seemed urgent. Ray rushed out the door, leaving behind his flip-flops, house keys, and wallet. He was never seen alive again. Days turned into an agonizing search. Flyers went up. Friends combed the city. Then, 8 days later, an employee at the Belvedere Hotel noticed something strange: a hole in the roof of a lower annex of the building. Beneath it lay Ray's body. The scene was chilling. It looked as though he had fallen from a great height, possibly from the rooftop, but nothing about the case fit neatly into place. To reach the spot where his body was found, he would have had to run and leap from a nearby ledge, a complicated maneuver that many investigators later said was nearly impossible. His cell phone and glasses were found near the hole, strangely intact, which made the idea of a high fall even more confusing. There was no history of depression, and his future was full of plans. Even stranger, a note was discovered, taped behind his computer at home. It contained cryptic references to people he admired, films, secret societies, and a phrase: "Whom virtue unites, death will not separate." Authorities called it bizarre, but could not connect it clearly to his death. The company Ray worked for was also a source of unease. Some of his friends claimed he had seemed stressed in the days before his disappearance. The phone call that lured him from his house that night was traced to his workplace, but no clear explanation was ever given. The lack of answers turned the case into a storm of theories: foul play, cover-up, or something even stranger. Every new detail only raised more questions. How did he get to that roof? Why did his belongings show almost no damage? And what exactly was hidden in that mysterious note? Nearly 2 decades later, the death of Ray Rivera remains one of Baltimore's most haunting mysteries. His family continues to search for truth, holding on to the belief that what happened that night was no accident. A normal evening turned into an unsolved enigma, and the hole in that rooftop still echoes with questions no one has been able to silence. In December 2010, Melbourne's busy streets were wrapped in the glow of summer lights. 24-year-old Phoebe Hansjuk was a young woman with a creative soul, a free spirit who loved painting, writing, and exploring life. She lived in a luxury apartment building called Balencia Towers, with her boyfriend Anthony Hampel, in what seemed like a comfortable modern life. But beneath the surface, things were complicated. On the evening of December 2nd, everything took a sudden, tragic turn. Around 7 p.m., a concierge at the building noticed a trail of blood leading to the ground floor garbage room. There, at the bottom of a large garbage chute, lay Phoebe's lifeless body. Her death was both brutal and deeply puzzling. Authorities reported that she had fallen feet first through a narrow opening from the 12th floor. The chute was only 40 centimeters wide, barely enough for someone to fit through. Investigators initially concluded it was likely an accident, suggesting Phoebe may have climbed into the chute herself after a night of drinking. But her family and many others found that explanation hard to believe. Climbing into such a small, high opening would have been extremely difficult and dangerous. Phoebe had injuries to her feet, hands, and legs consistent with the fall, but other elements of the case didn't align with a simple accident. She had been in a troubled state in the days leading up to her death, struggling with emotional pain and substance use. But those who knew her insisted that what happened didn't make sense. The position of her body, the time frame of events, and the condition of the apartment raised unsettling questions. There were also traces of blood in the hallway and elevator, suggesting she may have been injured before going anywhere near the chute. The garbage chute itself was in a difficult-to-access area, positioned high up, requiring someone to climb to get in. Many experts argued that the physical act of entering it voluntarily would have been nearly impossible in her condition. There were no surveillance cameras showing exactly what happened in those final moments. Her boyfriend told investigators he returned home to find the apartment dark and quiet, assuming she had gone out. Hours later, she was found dead. No charges were ever filed, and her death was officially classified as accidental. But to this day, her family has never accepted that conclusion. Phoebe's mysterious death has become one of Australia's most debated modern cases. It's a story filled with shadows, of unanswered questions, conflicting evidence, and a chilling sense that the truth may have slipped through the cracks. What began as a quiet evening in an upscale apartment building ended in tragedy inside a garbage chute, a place no one should ever end up, and a mystery that refuses to fade away. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. You won't want to miss the shocking stories we have coming next.